And I'm just gonna share a couple of things here with Alan, I think.
Oh, is he on there now?
Alan might join us. Yes.
Huh.
Let me see
I
here.
I'd like to see that again, probably,
He wants to see Ellen.
So anyway, yeah, we're here. We're getting going. We'll see if anybody joins us, but if nothing else, it will be.
Here it is, plate, Tina, and then that's it. I got 2 cookies I can eat. Whoa.
I'm gonna give Alan the page quickly. All right, so we are going. We are here. And we're going to go ahead and we're just trying this new with doing the Facebook Live. Just because we only have a couple of people here in Daniel's house with COVID going on and things like that. And also, we just want to make it available to those who aren't able to make it here for our Simple Church gatherings. So we are live here at Daniel's house, and we are going to start talking about holiness. And it's going to be a little different now that we're trying to create a setup here where we can spread people out, things like that. So we're not going to have the videos like we were when we were gathered before. But still, we're going to have time of worship at the end. I've got a link in there for people who want worship at home. They can follow the same playlist too, also. And there's also a link for the Bible Project video that's on this theme. I'll kind of summarize a little bit of it tonight, just because that way for the people here we can kind of, as we talk about holiness, when you think of something like the word holy, what comes to your mind?
What comes to my mind?
Yeah, what do you think of when you think of the word holy?
Holy is like no, there's no sin in you, you know? Like something like that.
Yeah, that would be one way, I think. Yeah, that is one way to look at it. I think a lot of times we look at moral behavior type stuff when we think of holy.
Holy Ghost.
Well, there is a Holy Ghost, yes. Yep, there's a Holy Spirit. So.
Anything kind of God related?
Anything high and above or God related. That's a good one.
I got another one.
What?
Holy Bible.
Oh, there's the Holy Bible, yes. Yep, that is true.
Praise,
yeah, a lot of times we think of like people are singing, and stuff like that. Yeah, it is. I mean, we think of a lot of stuff. A lot of times we do tend to think of moral behaviors when we think of holy. Like we talk about people that are like holier than thou or something like that. And it's just like they're, they think they're better than everybody type of a thing. And
yeah, that's what you call human holy significance.
Holy matrimony.
Well, yeah, this holy matrimony, that means a marriage that's...
Because, Leo, there is such thing as people, I know people like that they think they're perfect and they say, I'm holy than you, and there's people like that.
There are people
I know
like
what
that.
you're talking about.
Yeah. But see, it's not just about, some people would say it's like, well, you just got to avoid doing the bad things. I think the old saying growing up, don't drink, don't smoke, don't chew, don't go with girls that do stuff like that.
Because they can lead you into a bad spot.
That's what people used to think of with holiness and things like that. That's like an old saying. But really, holiness, when we think of God being holy, it's really about his power and uniqueness, and also, his character, his moral character too, but a lot of it has to do with, it's rooted in his uniqueness and his power. So when we look at holiness, we look at God's holiness. God, when we think of God being holy, it just means he is so much above any other thing we see in the world as far as a source of power and a source of strength and a source of character. And he's the originator of everything. And, but when you have that much power and you think of the idea of God's goodness and his character as well, you got to also think about the fact that if we would look at our own goodness compared to God's goodness and we go, yeah, we don't measure up, it can be kind of a scary thing to get close to somebody or a being that is that good.
Yeah.
An illustration they have in the video, the Bible Project video, which people can watch later if they want, is like the sun. Think of it like the sun. The sun is powerful, it's bright, and we get a lot of benefit from it because it warms our planet, it lights our day, things like that. But if you get too close to the sun,
you're gonna get burned.
Yeah, you would get burnt up. It would not be a good thing. That's why nobody is thinking about launching a rocket to the sun. They want to send men to the moon, they want to send men to Mars, but nobody's talked about launching a rocket to the sun yet. Because that would be a one-way trip. So,
I've always wondered.
Yeah.
I've always wondered why when they shoot those rockets off, why don't they ever shoot them at the sun?
because it would burn up.
Well, yeah, but it would probably also cause an explosion too.
Yeah, it would. So we're going to look at, tonight, we're going to look at two songs or hymns that are written in the Old Testament where, as part of the worship, they talk about the uniqueness of God. And in that, we will, we're gonna just kind of get a glimpse of God's holiness. So let's go ahead and we're gonna look at the first one we got here is
Done, Leon.
okay, cool. Exodus 15, 19 to 18. Somebody want to read that?
The enemy boasted, I will chase them and catch up with them. I will plunder them and consume them. I will flash my sword. My powerful hand will destroy them. But you blew with your breath, and the sea covered them. They sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who is like you among the gods, O Lord, glorious in holiness, awesome in splendor, performing great wonders? You raised your right hand, and the earth swallowed our enemies. With your unfailing love, you lead the people you have redeemed. In your might, you guide them to your sacred home. The peoples hear and tremble, anguish grips those who live in Philistia. The leaders of Edom are terrified. The nobles of Moab tremble. All who live in Canaan melt away. Terror and dread fall upon them. The power of your arm makes them lifeless as stone until your people pass by. O Lord, until the people you purchase pass by, you will bring them in and plant them on your own mountain, the place, O Lord, reserved for your own dwelling, the sanctuary, O Lord, that your hands have established. The Lord will reign forever and ever.
And the second hymn that we see is in 1 Samuel chapter 2, 1 to 10. And then we'll kind of talk about and compare these a little bit, because this first one is Moses is leading the people in worship after the crossing of the Red Sea, after God delivers them from Egypt. And they cross over out of Egypt across the Red Sea on dry ground. And the Egyptians come after them, and they're wiped out as the sea closes in on them. Their oppressors become the ones who are the ones who are defeated by God through this miracle of the sea. Now we're going to look at, this is a little bit more of a personal prayer. This is a prayer of a woman named Hannah who had been without children much of her life. And then God answered her prayer and gave her a son named Samuel. And this was her prayer of worship in that. So who would like to
On this one?
read this one? Yes.
Okay, it's, I guess, Hannah prayed. Don't that sound terrible with this crap on. My heart rejoices in the Lord. The Lord had made me strong. Now I have an answer for my enemies. I rejoice because you rescued me. No one is holy like the Lord. There is no one besides you. There is no rock like our God. Stop acting so proud and hafty. Don't speak with such arrogance, for the Lord is a God who knows what you have done. He will judge your actions. The bow of the mighty is now broken, and those who had stumbled are now strong. Those who well fed are now starving, and those who were starving are now full. The childless woman now had 7 children, and the woman with many children wastes away. The Lord gives both death and life. He brings some down to the grave, but raises others up. The Lord makes some poor and others rich. He brings some down and lifts others up. He lifts the poor from the dust and the needy from the garbage dump. He sets them among princes, placing them in seats of honor. For all the earth is the Lord's, and he has set the world in order. He will protect his faithfulness ones, but the wicked will disappear in darkness. No one will succeed by strength alone. Those who fight against the Lord will be shattered. He thunders against them from heaven.
There's a couple more lines on the next page.
Okay. Oh, God. Okay. I don't know if I can get this page open.
It's all like that.
Yeah, I know. It's,
No,
Yeah,
yeah, it's just like that. Yeah.
oh, yeah, glued together or something.
Yep.
The Lord judges throughout the earth. He gives power to his king. He increases the strength of his anointed one.
There we go. That's it. Yep.
Yeah, I was wondering why these pages were sticking. Is that the way you made them?
Yeah, I had to do that because I forgot to print two-sided when I printed this out, so I put
Oh, at least it makes them
put the
hard.
one-sided pages together and stapled them
At
together.
least it makes them hard to tear.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so you see the second hymn, and it's Hannah has this prayer. When she first was asking for a son, she committed to giving the son over to God in service if God would provide a son. Because for a woman in those days, that was a major issue, whether or not they could have children, whether or not they could bear a son for their husband as an heir. Hannah had a rival because her husband had a second wife, and that woman had other children, and so, but yet their husband loved Hannah a lot, and she always felt like she was the second-class woman in the house. So then she kept praying to God for a son, and she said, I will give him to you in service. And so she had a son, named him Samuel, and then when he reached an age where it was appropriate, she took Samuel to the temple to work for the high priest. To work for the priest at the tabernacle. They didn't have the temple back then. But to work for the priest and basically to work for God. And then Samuel became a great, history tells us he became a great prophet, and he was the one who anointed the first 2 kings of Israel.
Yeah, Samuel was a prophet.
He became a prophet. He became a leader of the people later in life. But at this point, Hannah's focus is God's taken care of me. God has removed my shame by giving me a son. So she breaks into this prayer of worship. So you have these two different hymns or prayers or poems or songs that they were singing. They were recorded in this poetic form, that approach that was used in Hebrew literature. And in both cases, the weak take comfort in God's power and holiness. If you look at the middle of the song in Exodus, Moses says, "Who is like you among the gods, O Lord, glorious in holiness, awesome in splendor, performing great wonders." It was this awesomeness of God that he was talking about, this great power, this great goodness of God that actually looked out for the weak and the oppressed, because their deliverance was they were delivered out of slavery. Egypt had become the symbol of corruption and of, at that time, it was a symbol of corruption. It was a symbol of rebellion against God because of the way they oppressed other people. They were not treating people the way God intended for us to treat other people, by making them slaves and working them so hard. And so Egypt had become, in that sense, the enemy of God because Egypt was the enemy of other people and had become the oppressor of other people, specifically the descendants of Abraham, who God had blessed to be a blessing to the world. Then with Samuel, you see this, Hannah starts out her prayer, and she's like, very early on, she's like, "No one is holy like the Lord. There is no one beside you. There is no rock like our God." So she's pulling in these parallel thoughts, that it's his power, it's greatness, that's what makes him unique. And that is what it means for God to be holy, that he is pure and perfect in character, but he is also the one with the power to give us an example of good character.
These two would be alike, right? The one who is like you among the gods, and no one is holy like the Lord. Right? Those are
those are
similar, right?
Those are two very similar phrases that they use. It really became a part of their identity that they saw God in this way, as being so other.
It's like Moses and Hannah had the same view of God. Like they had this similar view of God.
Exactly. Yeah. And, for Hannah, it was that, again, she was delivered from her shame. For Israel, it was that they had escaped slavery. In each of these cases, the arrogant are warned. In the Exodus, they're talking about how Egypt had challenged God, and they were punished because of it. Because they said they were so obsessed with maintaining this system of slavery that they just didn't pay attention to the fact that they were going right into the middle of a sea that just happened to be dried up by God. God dried up the sea for Israel to walk across, but he didn't give Egypt permission to go after them. They were intent on getting their slaves back, but they didn't even realize they were putting themselves in the middle of danger. And then when God pulled back his hand, the sea swallowed them up. And so it was Egypt's own arrogance, and particularly Pharaoh's own arrogance, that brought them to that place of destruction. The place where almost like they were trying to get closer to the sun.
Yeah, because one thing about that situation, I know Moses was trying to convince Pharaoh that his God was the real one, and the ones that they were worshiping was just like an idol, and they just kept denying it. And then they wanted to attack they started to want to like attack the people from Israel, and they're the ones that got they're the ones that got into like that problem that they like it's like they found their own problem instead of
Mhm.
trying to find a solution to what was going on right
They
there.
kind of, yeah, they did in the end create their own problem by trying to defy God and saying, I mean, basically, Pharaoh was saying, I'm more powerful than your God.
Yeah.
And God's like, no, you're not. Um, and so you kind of see this, and really in Moses' song, he's saying, you know, Israel, or these other lands that we're going to, that are living in defiance to God, and if they put themselves up against God, it's going to be a losing battle for them. And then you see with Hannah, you see how she talks about how the haughty, and she's thinking a lot of, I mean, see, within that whole context, she's kind of thinking about the other wife of her husband a little bit, because that other wife had become kind of haughty towards her, and she's like, hey, now you got nothing to, you know, shame me over. I have a son. I gave birth to a son. And actually, then she had other children after this too, and God replaced the child that, you know, by sending Samuel to the temple, or to serve in the tabernacle. God gave Hannah other children, but it was this God was basically that the haughty people became humbled by the birth of Samuel, and that God would that there's this talk, there's this continuation about how don't act as if you are better than God in your way, because God cares about the oppressed and the poor, is what she was getting at, what she was pointing at. When you look at a lot of these worship songs, you see similar themes throughout. When you look at Mary's worship song, when she knew she was going to give birth to the Messiah, to Jesus.
It's like saying some of these stories from the Bible. There was people that they went against God then, and it didn't turn out so good.
Yeah, it didn't turn out good for them, and
something like today, where people think they're better than God, and they call themselves God, and they call themselves a king, and
right,
yeah.
It's like sometimes I hear people, they think they know what they're talking about, and then I hear other people say, who do you think you are, God? Like that.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. And I think, yeah, there's a lot of people today who set themselves up to be, well, I know better than God, and they really don't.
No one knows better than God.
No one knows better than God. He's the only one that knows whatever is going to come. You know.
And it kind of just, you know, for us today, and you know, this kind of wraps this up in thinking about that dual relationship to God's holiness. The power is beneficial for us. There is power that God makes available to defend us against others who would try to do us harm. When we are doing right, when we are seeking justice, God will intervene on our behalf. But yet also, like you said, Nelson, there's people today that get kind of arrogant. And that's the danger we still have today, that if we become arrogant toward God and toward other people, God knows how to put us in our place. And God will put put people in their place if they are getting arrogant like that. So what other things kind of stand out to you as you think through these verses, or you look back at them? I mean, we've already had some good things that kind of stood out, but anything else?
We shouldn't think that we're above God, or even think that we are God or anything like that, because you're not. You know, you're a human being at the end of the day, like, and you're playing with fire doing that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're it's almost, well, it's not almost, it is. It's like we're the, okay, like he had the sheep out there, and he's the head of the crop. Well, we're the crop, and he's the head, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you know, he rules us. But whatever we say or do isn't good enough for him. He's the only one that knows what area is going on.
Right, right.
There was this one time on the news when I was home. I saw it on the news. There was this guy that had a license plate and it says "I'm a god," and I'm like, no, you're not.
Huh?
Yeah, I'm saying that like you
You
know.
seen a license plate that said that?
Yeah, and the dude was like, "I'm a god," and then I'm just like,
Oh
no,
man.
you're not. Like, if you were a god,
I
like
can
you
see him
wouldn't,
go up in a church
like-
with that.
you wouldn't be visible in a way, you know.
Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah.
Like I can see you. You're a human being. You're not.
Leon, you're
God.
gonna have to get one of them license plates.
No, I don't think I will. I don't think I will. Oh, that would be funny. That would be
Like,
funny.
do you even know how much
Oh man.
you're blaspheming?
Yeah,
Doing that?
I would think that would be it. I mean, yeah, I think about that. Well, I just even think about this whole situation with COVID right now. And I think if there's one thing that I hope we're learning through all this is we're not as powerful as we sometimes think we are. That a virus can affect our society in this way.
And I think we all have that.
We got a pretty good dose of that already,
I
by
think-
hearing all that.
I think we all have that. I think we all have that. That reality where sometimes we think we're powerful enough, and we're not.
Yeah.
Because if we were, why do we have problems?
Mm-hmm.
You know, why? If we're so powerful, if we were so powerful, we wouldn't have problems.
Yeah.
Everything would be alright.
And then you know what else though, Leon? We couldn't just say, oh, we're good as God. No, nobody's good as God.
Right. Right.
Yeah, like no one's good as God neither. Like he's the only good one. Like
Well, and I think we have the opportunity. It's like when we humble ourselves before God, He gives us the opportunity to have wisdom to deal with situations. If we're willing to listen to Him. But we're not always willing to listen to Him, and I think that's where we're running into problems right now.
yeah, that's true.
It's,
Well, I'll tell you, when I was a kid, I gotta tell you, when I was a kid, my mom thought the opposite, cause every time I went around, running around, I'd say, God this, God that, you know, cussing up a storm and everything. Oh man, that wasn't very good at all. I'll tell you.
mm-hmm.
But then again, there is a reason why we do this, because we're not perfect.
Right.
We're just humans. Like, I mean, if we were perfect, we would actually know what to do. Like, you know, we would be like.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you have to make a mistake. Then you gotta learn from that mistake. But you also gotta depend on God to go through your obstacles and mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. I think you're right. Yeah, that's good. That's very good.
Right? I mean, I don't know. That's how I look at it. I don't know.
No, I think that's very good. I really do think that's
Because
a
we're
lot
not
of-
perfect. Like we can make a mistake and we might not notice it. Some people make mistakes and they don't even notice they made one.
Right,
you know?
right.
That's true.
Yeah, and then I think you get people who, like, if you talk to them about, oh, did you ever ask for forgiveness or whatever, and they'll be like, well, I don't need forgiveness. I
See,
just go on and be better, type of thing. You know, that's that attitude of, oh, I don't need God to forgive me.
That's
Okay.
arrogant.
Yeah, it is, and I think it's better in those situations that we humble ourselves and we learn from those mistakes.
That's another thing we have to learn is how to humble ourselves.
Yeah.
Because I think we all have a problem with humbling ourselves.
You know, one thing, Leon, that got me started, I mean, it really, I was pretty much ready before, well, when Joyce told me about this, I was baptized at this, what do they call it, Living Word Bible Church on Minnesota and State, over there where I used to live.
Okay, yeah, I think it
And
is.
it was they call it Living Bible Water Church.
Yeah, I know which one it is. Yeah.
Joy went to that church.
Okay.
And then I was there with her, and then they wanted 2 people to get baptized, but they said who would come up here and prove themselves wealthy or worthy, and we both went up there.
But you know what else, Leon? I think what we really were like, I mean, this is just my opinion. I think what we really, really need is God's love. That's what we need.
Yeah.
You know, like that'll. I think God's love can show people the way, you know? Like.
I agree. Yeah, definitely.
Not our love, because our love is just whatever type of love. But God's love.
It's holy love. It's,
I think
it's
you're
good
right,
love. It's the
yeah.
perfect form
I
of
think
love.
you're right. The other way around, we need His love.
Yeah, exactly.
He needs our love. Oh man.
Because love,
That's a
like
good one.
earthly love is something that it can destroy you when thinking that it can help you, you know? But God's love is not like that. It's a way different type of love that doesn't hurt you at all.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's more than what we give. And it's more real than what we give.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely. I think that's good. Very good. It is, and I think it's that type of love that changes our hearts and that we can respond to with more humility. Because we realize even when something is going wrong, that God's love is drawing us to a better life, even in the difficulties.
It's like when you're alone, I feel like people, like, if you're alone, like just by yourself, I feel like that's when you can feel God's love. When no one's around, when nobody's around, you're just by yourself.
A lot of times, yeah.
Because that's when you feel like vulnerable to yourself, and then God's just like right there, like you probably don't even know it, and He's right there with you.
You know, Leon, just like another thing, when 2 people argue and go on, say 2 people argue and go on, and they like say, well, we'll stay gone for about a week or 2. Then they get back together and they make up, and things start being really better. That's God that's His medicine to them. You know, so to speak. But
yeah, it's true. Well, hey, we're going to go ahead and transition into worship time, and I'm going to probably end the live stream soon. I'll just mention a couple of things. I'll put a link in the comments later, but I did put together a study guide on holiness for people that want to follow through on that. It comes from the Bible Project. They just put together some of their stuff. They had a study guide that's available, and then they took their summary of the video on the topic of holiness and put it together for people. And I'll have that out there on the Facebook in the comments. I'll have a link to where you can look up that stuff for yourself, because this could be an interesting topic to kind of keep studying on your own over the next few weeks. And as we probably will spend 2 or 3 weeks, and we'll draw some of our themes for the next 2 weeks out of this study, but there's a lot on this topic that we won't get into in detail. And it's a good way to kind of just be building yourself up as well. I have a link in the description here for anybody who's on, watching the YouTube or the Facebook live later. You can have your own worship and prayer time with the music that we're going to be using now. But why don't we go ahead and